Hello and welcome to this episode of Tarot Rebel Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Gogo and
And Jess. And Jess. Me.
yes,
Hello.
your line misses.
Yours truly, Jess.
Yes, and we have a disclaimer, don't we?
Yes, disclaimer. We are not responsible for awakening the masses.
Well, that started off good.
Yeah, I think so. I think
It
so.
should be it should be a fun episode then. Hello,
Yeah, yeah.
everybody that's joining in and listening to this episode, and you have taken the time out of your day to spend some time with us. Today, we have decided to talk about the tarot business. As Chas put it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So,
Yeah,
uh,
most
I think,
definitely.
yeah, I think we'll go off of your idea and just start off light,
Yeah,
and go from there. Leave the ugly for the end, I guess.
yeah.
um, so yeah,
Let's start off on a positive note.
yeah, I think that's
Before we
necessary at
start
this point.
scaring before
Yeah.
we start scaring people off to,
See, we are good witches. We want to rope you in before we scare you off, right?
right.
Yeah.
So it's
So
always good to start on a positive note, as I said. So
exactly.
uh yeah, so I get this a lot. How what do you suggest, for someone who's starting off
Mm.
with a tarot business and doing tarot readings professionally? Like, how do you go about that? So I think that would be a good place for us to start off with and kind of like share our
Yeah.
pointers and
Would you
and
like to
stuff
go
like that.
first?
Yeah, I could go first. Well, for me, I started small. I mean, I just started reading. Firstly, I started just practicing and practicing and practicing. It took me a while, honestly, to build the confidence to start reading for others. I I would say the first maybe 2 years was just delving into everything tarot, all about it, the ins and the outs, the meanings and the history and the combination of the cards and different spreads and all of that stuff. So I think for me that's what it was. It was just a quiet little fixation.
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to start ultimately. When you are
Yeah.
learning the cards, you have to spend some time to actually learn the meanings and stuff like that. And I know that debate is very hot in the community about reading based off of the traditional meanings or the readings meant and written for a specific card or a specific deck versus the meanings that you yourself come up with intuitively and psychically. But I would say, as you said, with any beginner, anyone who is just dipping their toe into tarot, spend some time investing into reading the actual book, the booklet, whatever you can come up with, to have that sort of information and basis to go from in the future. So yeah, I think that's a good place to start for anyone jumping into these waters.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean for me that's how it started. And then but fast forward, that was my humble beginnings with it, and we covered this. So but as far as professionally and starting the business, it was 11 years ago for me. And I already was reading for a while, but it was always a question. I think it was that also controversial question of charging versus not charging. You know what I mean? And I was met with a lot of opinions about that over the years. And I realized that a lot of my, ideologies and belief systems were based off of comments and things that were said by others in the past about, You know, is it right to charge people for readings? Is it right to, you know, do this professionally? You know, a lot of spiritual readers, spiritual advisors get that stigma of, you know, being fake or crooks, or, you know, it gets a bad rap. It really does. And I didn't want to
It
fall
does.
into that. I didn't want to fall into that category. You know, I didn't want to be kind of under that umbrella. So I just was like, you know what, this is something I enjoy. This is something that I've studied and worked with for quite some time. I just like to read, right? That was
Yeah.
you know, that was my story. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I was sticking to it until like one day I had a couple of my friends over, and, you know, they were like, "Oh, could you read the cards to us?" Because they knew I read. So I was like, "Yeah, sure." You know, so I took it out and I read for a friend of mine for the first time. He never got a reading by me. He knew from mutual friends that I did read, and I remember after the reading, he was just very quiet, and he just said to me like, "Chas, why aren't you charging? You're really good at what you do." And I remember just looking at him like, "I don't know. I mean, I don't feel right." And he was like, "Why?" He was like, "You're providing a service. It's only fair that you be compensated for it." You know,
Exactly.
and when he put it in that perspective, that changed the game for me. And I really thought about it, and I started asking myself, why is it that I was reluctant to charge? It was two things. One, I wasn't quite confident enough to charge, because I felt like when you charge, now this is a responsibility. You've got to be good to be charging people. I mean, honestly, that's the expectation.
Yeah. That is
You
very
know what
true.
I
Yeah.
mean? So there was doubt within myself if I was good enough to charge. You know, then on the other side of it was the moral aspect of it, the moral thing of reading. And, you know, I was raised Catholic, so I had a little bit of that organized religious kind of stereotypes and
Yeah.
stigma beaten into my head too. So it was a combination of all of that. And it wasn't until I decided, you know what, I'm going to bite the bullet and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this professionally. And I have been reading for a while. So I'm going to do this. So I remember I started off very small. I opened up a Facebook business page and added like my friends and the people that I read for. Um, and yeah, and things just sort of spread like word of mouth. And for a good while, I mean, now looking back at it, I mean, there wasn't as many resources as there is now. Like now we got Instagram, now we got Snapchat, now we got um all these other outlets. I mean, YouTube was around back then, you know, like looking back, if I had
Yeah.
opened a YouTube first and not a Facebook, it probably would have been a bit different.
Oh yeah.
But I noticed that a lot of readers initially go to YouTube because it's like the place to be seen and heard,
Yeah.
right? As far as reading is concerned.
Mhm.
And I've been on YouTube and I'm on and off on it. But
Similar
I
to
mean,
me.
you know, I I find that you have to be super consistent on YouTube.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, you have to have a set schedule. And because I do so many other things, it's kind of hard for me to kind of stick to YouTube, because you have to have at least 2 or 3 days to do those readings. And you got to be like really dead set on that schedule every week.
Oh yeah.
Because if you're not consistent on YouTube, you will not get like subscribers. You got to be on point with it. And I think because, like I said, I had all this other stuff going on, and you know, a lot of my readings are done out, you know, more in person
Hmm.
than online. You know, I do online readings for a lot of my clients that are, you know, out of state, you
Yeah.
know, overseas, whatever. But most of my bread and butter has been in-person readings, and I also teach in-person classes.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, G, because I'm gonna tell you something. And you know, we always keep it real in this podcast.
Of course.
I've had some shade thrown at me in the past, you know, because I don't have as many followers or subscribers, or, you know, as much as they believe I should have for doing this as long as I have. I've had other readers say, oh, well, you know, it really sucks you're not getting recognized. It really sucks you're not getting, you know, the recognition that you deserve. You've been reading for a long time. And I said, well, when I started, none of this stuff was around, to be honest. You know, all we had back in the day when I started, there was AOL, you know, and that was it. America Online was how you got into the internet.
Yeah.
A lot of my humble beginnings was word of mouth, was just doing in-person readings. And that's, for me, where I feel most at home, where I feel most comfortable, is engaging people organically.
Yeah.
You know, nowadays, this is, you know, the technological highway. You know, everything is the internet now, everything's social media. You know, YouTube is huge for the community now. But again, like me, I feel most productive when I'm doing stuff organically. And I know now with the Rona, it's especially hard now. So I've been making do, but it was never
It's
a
not the
question
same.
of, yeah, you know, so a lot of other readers that I've come across in the community have assumed that I'm not getting any clout or whatever, or I'm not getting any recognition or accolades because, you know, I don't have, you know, a couple of thousand subscribers on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook. But what they don't know is a lot of my clientele are people that I know personally for the past 20 years. You know what I'm saying? And when I teach classes, I teach full classes in person with people. So for me, and again, it's not really about that, because for me, it's about quality over quantity.
Yeah.
And when I, you know, take students on, when I take clients on, you know, I feel like, because I could engage them personally, and I could really deter if this person is like understanding of the services I provide, you know, like talking to them on a personal basis.
Yes.
Versus, I feel like, you know, it's a bit of a risk, and this is my humble opinion, okay? I'm just sharing how I feel about it. The thing is about YouTube for me is that I feel it's a bit of a risk because you get a lot of random people and you don't really know what they're about. You also get a lot of trolls, and you also get a lot
very
of
much.
You also get a lot of people that expect certain things because there's so many readers out there. There's so many, you know, they expect a lot of freebies. They expect a lot more out of you, and not really willing to pay for service render, because they're watching your videos or whatever. And then they want a personal reading, and then they expect all this stuff. Because I've gotten that from a lot of people. Because now we're getting into the bad and the ugly of it. But we'll get into that in a minute.
Step by step.
We'll get to that in a minute. But like I said, for me, it's just based on experiences of other readers that I know that have been out there on YouTube. It's a very dog eat dog kind of dynamic going on. And for me, again, this is not about competition. This is not about clout. This is not about recognition or accolades. For me, this is about engaging people, reaching people, helping people. And I've been doing this for a very long time. And like I said, and everybody that I've worked with, everybody that I've read for, I'm still very much in contact with, and I'm actually pretty you know, like we're friends, you know, like a lot of people I've become really good friends with that started out as clients or students, you
Yeah.
know. And but yeah, so I guess to sum it all up for me, I would say find your niche, find your strong point, and go with that, right? When it comes to this business, don't try to fit a certain criteria, don't try to fit a certain MO, and don't compare yourself and your craft to others. Comparison will always make you insecure and doubtful, and it'll bring up maybe, you know, other negative ego things, and you really don't want to do that. You stay true to yourself and your craft and your personal niche and just go with that. Okay. And that's what's worked for me. Like I said, for me, my strong point, I know, is working with people organically.
Yeah.
You know, reading in person, teaching in person. These are things, this is my strong suit. This is where I thrive.
Yeah.
Unfortunately now, like I said, given the circumstances, it's a little difficult now, but, and I'm making it work. But yeah, that's really for me what it boils down to, finding your niche and going with it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
really learning how to market, but market with authenticity.
Oh yeah, that's a big point.
Yeah, market with authenticity. And what I mean by that is just be you and be honest about who you are and what services you're providing. You know, there's a lot of these gimmicky sort of marketing strategies that I see on Instagram. You know, oh, I know who your soulmate is, or you know, you get all these kind of random messages, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Want to be a
so
millionaire? Come
yeah,
for a reading. I
these
mean,
ghosts, I call these the ghost DMs, right? You get these ghost DMs from reading pages or about, you know, I know who your soulmate is, message me now for a reading, or you know, you got some bad juju and I could take it away, message me now. You know what I mean? Kind of stuff like that. And honestly, that sort of stuff pisses me off, because that is the kind of stuff that kind of makes all the rest of us kind of look bad. Like we're just
yeah,
soliciting people for money and giving and feeding bullshit, you know, and that's the kind of
yeah,
thing that really grinds my gears. But again, we'll get
oh
to
yeah,
that later on. But
we will.
again, that's my suggestion to everyone that's listening. Find your niche, guys. And to be perfectly honest, it's going to take a little while in the beginning to find what your niche is and your approach. But once you do, just go with it and just put yourself out there and just be your authentic self. And the
Yeah.
clients and the people that want to follow, subscribe, and whatever, they'll come. They will. How about you, G? What do you suggest?
Well, my point, I guess, to kind of feed off of what you said, is to not be afraid to put yourself out there. I feel like that was one thing that really worked for me. And just to go back for a second, what you just mentioned before, the ghost DMs, is very funny because I don't know if you were checking anything on a daily basis, but we did get messages on our IG profile from love readings, for soulmate readings, and I think it was something about money. So accounts kind of offering, I can tell you who your soulmate is, how they look, and when you will meet them, which kind of made me crack a little because I was like, we're very clearly by the title, by the description, a page that does tarot. So I think it was wrong audience that they chose. But in any case, to go back to the topic, as I said, I feel like not being afraid to step out of your shell and work on what you're offering is sort of the biggest point for me. Because I know that was the biggest point in building my business and in building myself as a person, I can honestly tell you that I don't know who I would be right now if I did not start reading the cards. I
Right.
have found my voice, I have found my confidence, I have found my weaknesses and my strong points through doing tarot. Not just for myself, but doing tarot for others. And here's what I mean. At the end of the day, I feel like it comes down to the time and energy you invest into the entire process. And when it comes to building a business, you have to open yourself up to opportunities, right? And I feel like to also add to that, at the beginning, if you are starting a business, don't be afraid to give it a try. Whether that be in-person readings, whether that be online readings, whether that be video, audio, PDFs, try and dabble in each one for a little bit. See what suits you. Then look for what sort of reading are you giving? Is it more so inspirational reading? Do you tend to give more self-empowering readings? Is it more based in love? Are you usually picking up on finances? See where you naturally are guided by the cards and what your intuition pulls you towards. And then from that point, just go hard at the end of the day. You have to invest the time and you have to put yourself out there. I know that there is some people that have circumstances in their life that do not allow them to be very vocal or open in their private life about what they're doing or the path that they're choosing to kind of take for themselves. But that leaves the whole internet. And I can honestly say that I have seen some people who are pretty anonymous online, who are great readers, and
Mm-hmm.
who give something authentic while not being completely out there, let's say, out of the broom closet, would be the witchy term, I guess. So, yeah, there is no excuse at the end of the day. If you're choosing to walk down this path, you have to invest the time to put yourself out there, test, try, see what works for you, what doesn't, what sort of thing do people come to you the most for? What sort of reading do you give and where you're leaning towards in that entire scheme of things? And marketing, as you said, yeah, authentic approach is the best approach. But if you're say like I'm not doing money readings, people keep requesting money readings, and you're like, okay, I have to give it a shot because I feel obligated. They've ordered a reading and I have to do that. You do not have to do that. And that's where I feel like authentic marketing comes through. Because if you point that out, this is my strong suit. I do love, or I do life, or soulmates, whatever it is, past life. That's where I feel the strongest, and that's where I can give you the best possible reading you could have. And make that your strong point. And of course, after time as readers, I think you can attest to that, Chaz, we develop and we evolve. And what once we weren't able to do as strongly as we can right now, or we could in the past, we are now blossoming at, and we can have a different perspective on it. And that comes with time, with years, and with the experience at the end of the day. So yeah, I feel like the biggest point for me is don't be afraid to put yourself out there. As I said, I found my voice through that. And that's where you will find your confidence in a reading. If you sit down at a table and you're like, well, this is coming through, and if you keep doing that and just pausing and not being certain in yourself, there is still some time you need to invest. Do
Absolutely.
freebies, do offers, whatever, do discounted rates for smaller readings just to practice, to get that time in, to get that experience. You're able to say, where you're able to sit down at a table, open the cards and say, like, this, and this is what is coming through. This is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm picking up on. This is what you need to know right now. When you're able to do that, you're good to go. And you're going to be an amazing reader at that as well.
Exactly. Yep. There it is, guys. And like I said, it's opened so many doors for us. And as
Yeah.
you so eloquently put it, it gave you your voice. It did the same for me. It built my confidence. And like I said, for me, tarot was one of the first things that I just gravitated to. And I was young, so young, you're fickle. You
Yeah.
jump from one thing to another, you go through phases.
Yeah.
Tarot was never a phase for me, but a calling.
The
And I
longest
really
relationship I have ever been in.
I realize that now. Like we've mentioned this several times already,
Oh
but
yeah. Oh yeah.
and I do feel that it showed me my path. It helped me find my way. And I I feel that it also helped me to develop thick skin too, because there's so much rhetoric, there's so many opinions and comments and uh, adversity that you do face doing this line of work. It's not easy.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we got into the positive of it, and for those who want to start off on this business, it's initially it is not easy, okay? And
Oh, no.
a lot of people go into this thinking it's lucrative right now, it's pretty uh popular, it's out there, and I'm just gonna buy a deck of cards and just read off the dome for the 12 astrological signs, and there you go. There's so much more to it, and um it's not as simple as people think, okay? Because the bad and the ugly of it is like everything else. Any type of career path you engage you engage in, or take on, is going to have its challenges.
Of course.
And for me, I think the challenges was really trying to find my approach during readings. I think, like I said, growing thick skin was something of a challenge, because with the clients, and like when it's customer service, guys, like you're dealing with the public, you're dealing with people, and people, when they pay for a service, they have certain expectations. And at times when their quote unquote expectations are not met, uh, there will be some, I guess you can say, disgruntled disgruntled customers and
Oh
clients.
yeah. It happens quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah.
It happens quite a bit.
And I think that's why we did the episode on how to get the most out of a reading and the stereotypes of tarot, because we wanted to make this clear to the public of what a reading really is and what it entails, and all these stereotypical kind of ideologies attached to what a reading is and what a reader does. It's something that we had to struggle with for many years. And now I'm at a space where when I find that I'm met with those kind of reactions or expectations, I gotta break it down. So listen, this is how a reading works. And I'm at a space where if they can't understand that aspect of it, then maybe I'm not the reader for you. I have no, like I said, I've said this, G, I have no qualms with turning a person away if they can't understand my approach, or don't like my approach, or like you said, maybe perhaps I'm not the reader for you. You know what I mean? And that's why I said, I believe we talked about this last episode about how now I don't, I guess I'm a bit more discerning than I was in the beginning. In the beginning, I was just feeling myself out, because like you said, in the beginning, you're figuring this journey out. You're figuring out your niche, your strong points as a reader. So you're kind of going through the motions, just like with any business. When you're climbing up that ladder, or you're trying to figure those things out so that you can excel, or level up in the business. It's the same thing here, but it's in a sense of finding out what your strengths and your weaknesses are. So,
Building boundaries, I feel like, is a big point I would like to add on here. To
oh yeah,
know when to say no and when to accept certain things. As you said yourself, I feel like that comes through with time once you've had certain experiences and you have seen where your boundaries have been broken and where you need to reestablish them, and what sort of boundary it needs to be and what it entails. I feel like that's a big part that eventually has to happen. Certain things from the get-go, yeah, but down the line, I feel like it's good to reevaluate, build new ones, and ultimately establish the ones that have been broken, and just see what needs to happen for you to make you comfortable in the reading, so you can give your best at the same time.
absolutely. And honestly, if you're someone by nature that has an issue with setting boundaries, then this is something you definitely have to work on before delving into this business, ladies and gents, because
Yeah. If you like me, spend some extra time on it.
yeah,
It's gonna take you a bit, but you're gonna figure it out.
yeah, because your boundaries will be tested in this line of work. Okay, and like I said,
Sometimes more harshly than others.
yeah, and like I said, developing some thick skin. Okay, if you can't handle a little bit of negative feedback from time to time, or some, disgruntled clients or dissatisfied clients or whatever, then yeah, not every reading's gonna go smooth as eggs. It's not.
No, 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 no,
Okay.
no, no, no. Sometimes you're rolling around in pine cones.
And
It's not
like
as
and
smooth
like
as
you
eggs.
said, G, like you said, G, even if what you're saying doesn't register for the client or doesn't resonate at, you know, and they make that known, oh, that doesn't resonate or that doesn't make sense, I would say hold on to yourself and hold on to your message, because in the beginning, when I would get that sort of response, I would kind of shut down, like, oh damn, maybe I'm wrong, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't trust the message that I'm getting, the intuitive, messages. So I would kind of like get on defense, I guess you could say. And but now I trust what I get, even if it doesn't register or resonate right away. I would say quite often when I get that response, a couple of weeks later, I'll get a message or a phone call from a client, or I'll run into them, or they'll request another reading because what I said at that initial reading actually panned out or made sense later on.
Yeah.
So, another little tip that I found in my experience is whatever messages that come in, just go with what your intuition is coming in as. Just go with it, okay? Even if they're like, I don't understand what that means. That doesn't resonate. That doesn't, just go with it. And I always give them the disclaimer also. I said whatever messages come in, they may not resonate now, but they more than likely will later on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So just again, like when we had the episode on how to get the most out of a reading, is to keep an open mind. So that's the thing that uh, you have to keep, um, that idea and hold on to that, because, when you get those messages and they don't really get it, or like I said, again, they have to keep an open mind.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. I think that throughout the years, and as you, well, not the years in general, but throughout the time that you practice and you start reading, trusting that gut instinct and your intuition comes very hand in hand, I want to say, with the experience itself. Because it sort of becomes second nature as you learn that certain things that come true, or come through, with a reading are meant to be, let's say, experienced or understood at a later point. And another interesting thing that I wanted to say here, and sort of bring it up as well, I feel like it may be a good point as well here. Um, Certain times when you're doing reading for somebody else, it may be the case that certain information pops up that is meant for you, which I have had happen a lot of the time, especially in the beginning, when you're not making sort of that differentiation, if that makes sense, between yourself and the other person. You sort of get mixed signals because sometimes the cards are like, Linda, you be speaking about certain things out here, but you need to hear this as well. So sometimes the readings will be like, okay, this is a bit confusing because the client will be like, oh, this doesn't resonate with me, and it won't because it wasn't meant for them. So I feel like a good piece of advice here is make sure that you have, I would say maybe a certain ritual. That may be a good way to go about it. Have a certain ritual you do when you go read for yourself. If you're pulling a card for yourself on a daily basis, it can be simple as lighting a candle. As simple as that. Knocking the wood, whatever. Doing something where you differentiate the process that you have for yourself and then creating something different for the client. So if you're going for a client, it will be putting on a smudge stick or lighting a candle, whatever else, having a glass of water that's blessed or that's charged with moon or with the sun, whatever. Some sort of practice or ritual that you take or do beforehand. So you have that sort of mental and you could say energetic differentiation between reading for yourself and reading for somebody else. For me, it's more so the visualization work. I've sort of created, and in a temple, when I'm reading for myself, I'll go into that temple. When I'm reading for somebody else, I have created a different place in my mind where I go to be able to tune out everything else and just focus on the person that I have in front of me, whether that be physically or whether that be through the interwebs.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. And I think also protecting your energy as well is
Mm-hmm.
is is also an important part of that ritual as well. I feel whatever method you use for protection, as you said, G, whether it's candles or crystals or if you
Yep.
sage or
Forgot
whatever
to mention the
method,
crystals. That's a big
yeah,
one. It can be quite
whatever
useful.
whatever method you use to uh, protect and also to cleanse as well, because I learned this the hard way. I would read and read and read and read for like a whole day and be completely wiped out, and I wouldn't cleanse myself after, because when you're, what a lot of, of the public don't realize is that, we're taking on a lot of energy when we're reading. And not everybody's in the best energy space, you know? So sometimes we're taking on a lot of anxiety. We're taking on a lot of sadness, a lot of depression. So it's very important, especially for me as an empath, that I have to kind of clear the energy before and after readings,
Oh, yeah.
because there would be moments in the past where I was like completely wiped out, like totally like just out. Okay. And because I didn't know any better. And I remember I had a few of my friends that had told me, Chas, you need to start cleansing and
Mm-hmm.
you gotta do it before and after. So I think that's another important thing when you do this professionally, because you're going to be doing quite a few readings in a day. um so yeah. um
And also, sort of, I would also point out to make yourself the channel, as we have already previously talked about this. In a way, you can consider us to be a channel of sorts for the information, for the spirit, for the energy, for the message. And
mhm.
I feel like a lot of people, especially those with high inclination to be very helpful, to do the best that I can, the best they can, sorry. I feel like a lot of empaths have that issue. It's important to know that you're the channel, you're not the source, to give all your energy away rather than use what is around you to pull that energy back in. and give it out, basically, to be
Right.
used as a channel rather than be used as a source. That was the case for me. I'll be wiped after doing 3 readings in an afternoon.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Been there.
Done that.
I think I think what really opened my eyes to how much I have to know my limit energetically was when I did a festival for the first time. And it was an outdoor festival, and it was awesome. And yeah, I don't even remember how many people I read, but it was a line of people for like 4 hours straight. So it's quite a few people. And I was so busy. I remember I didn't even have time to drink anything. I didn't have time to eat. It was just nonstop the whole time. And again, I didn't set that boundary because, there were people coming in and I didn't want to turn people away or be rude or anything. But again, you have to give yourself time to recharge. And the first year I didn't do that. And when I tell you I was wiped out for like an entire week after that festival, like I think I
Hmm.
slept, I legit slept for like 3 days straight. After that festival, I was done. Okay. And like for that entire week after, I didn't work at all. I just couldn't do it. And it was a lesson. It made me see that, I have to give myself time to recharge. And I do have to, as you said, set a boundary. Listen, I'm taking a break right now. You can come back in about 15 minutes. Right. And I
Yeah.
didn't do that. I was like a fucking machine. I just kept going and going and going. And, it ended up pretty much biting me in the ass where I just couldn't function for like
Yeah.
an entire week. And, like I said, another part of this craft and this business is, you learn, there's a lot of trial and error, you
Oh
know?
yeah.
So for me, this was one of those moments, lesson learned that I'm not a machine, despite what many people think as readers, like we're just like a fortune telling machine, just that keeps going and going, like the Energizer Bunny. No, we're human beings.
I don't know.
And we need our time to recharge, to recalibrate, and all that. So I remember when I did the festival the following year, that's when I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to do this in moderation. I was equally busy. However, I took some breaks to drink some water, recharge. I ate. I took like a 15-minute break to, to have something to eat, get a little breather. And, like when they did come to my booth, I remember my friend was in the booth and my mom and a couple other people helping me out as well. And they would tell them, listen, she's on break right now. You guys can come back in about maybe 10 to 15 minutes. And they
Yeah.
were cool
Yeah.
about it. They were like, yeah, some people weren't, they were like, forget it or whatever. But hey, like I said, in the beginning of this, the people that are really meant to be read from you will come.
Yeah.
And they will come back if they need to. So
Exactly.
that's how I look at it. If they're not happy about that or whatever, then again, I'm probably wasn't the reader for them, or they weren't meant to be read that day. It is what it is. But like I said,
Exactly.
I did learn to definitely practice self-care and doing my cleansing rituals and my energy um clearing rituals. And another thing about this, guys, and you will experience this, and this is what I call burnout. And I did experience this quite a few times over the years. And a lot of times you do feel like, I can't do this anymore, and this is too much, and because it gets overwhelming. Because now we're going to get into the bad and the ugly side of this business,
Hmm.
where it can trigger burnout.
Yeah.
Okay, so before I want to ask you, G, like,
Yes.
what would you say is the bad and the ugly part of this that you've experienced thus far?
Thus far.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you want the bad or the ugly?
Well, whatever comes to you first.
Um, I feel like for me, the the biggest thing was the lack of respect you sometimes can experience with this trade.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, I feel like there is a lot of people who still, to this very day, to this modern day and era, consider this to be simple fortune telling thing and not something that can seriously change and enhance your life. I feel like that was the biggest, you can say, misconception and belief that I've came across in my work with tarot. And I feel like that's sort of I want to say the biggest thing for me that kind of triggers me sometimes. And at the end of the day, that I've come across because you try your best, right? You try to give as much as you could, and you try to invest and help and involve yourself and take extra time and give extra energy to help a person, to help a client, to basically uh, give them what they need in that given moment. So for me to sometimes see people, and I'm not saying this is a consistent thing, but you do get these people here and there, and you'll, I feel like, firstly recognize them by the way that they speak, because they tend to come in with requests rather than questions. I always welcome questions when it comes to my readings. And I've a lot of the times got people coming in like, "Do you mind me asking you questions? I've done readings in the past. I just want to make sure, or I've never gotten a reading. Do you mind me asking a couple of questions?" And I'm like, "Ask away. I don't mind that." But there is a difference between requests and questions. So I feel like that will be the first sign for those who are starting out there that you're working with somebody who will not 100% respect what you do. Second of all, it comes down to payment. I feel like a lot of people who are like that will start to argue that they should not be charged or that they should be getting a lesser price, or they'll start to come up with things about the reading that it wasn't as accurate or it didn't give them what they needed or stuff like that. It sometimes can be true, but when you're working with that type of a person, usually is that sort of a case. And yeah, in general, it sort of brings that feeling through that what you're doing is not valid, or it shouldn't be charged, or it shouldn't exist almost. It should just be a game, pretty much. So I feel like that's my number one and top thing. That's like the bad and the ugly. Working with people who do not respect what you do. Because at the end of the day, when you step into a reading with somebody like that, and I think Chas, you can attest to this as well, you get that feeling. And the reading is off because you feel like you know that they aren't responding, they aren't receiving the information. They're listening to you, but they're not hearing you. And there's a big difference.
Right.
So for me, that's the bad and the ugly. When I'm talking to you and you're not hearing me, I'm not telling you what to do. I just need you to hear me, to use
Right.
that information, to listen to it, and to possibly try and apply it or do something with it. Because it's not in my favor, it's in your favor if I'm reading for you. So I would say that's my number one thing. What about you?
That's a big one. That's a
It's a
big
big
one. And
one.
you know what?
I started off with a monster.
Oh yeah. And I'm glad you did because I mean, oh, don't even get me started with that. It is especially the part of it that you mentioned with the charging
Oh yeah. I feel like we've
and
touched
the
on that
amount.
topic so many times, but it's so persistent in our line of work. It comes up time after time after time.
And you and I have talked about this, like, I mean, privately among ourselves, how often this comes up,
Oh
and
yeah.
we both decided collectively that it needs to be addressed,
Mm-hmm.
because
For sure.
honestly, it's to a point where it's become like one of the biggest, I would say, controversial topics in this business, I would say, really. Uh, and believe it or not, I've gotten backlash from other people in the community about this.
Mm.
Uh, I told you that there were people that are pagan and read also, and they've come at me sideways where, oh, I read tarot too, but I don't charge, as to uh as to make a point that they're, I don't know, for lack of a better
Better
word,
than.
better or more morally just than we are because we charge. And I I think the bad and the ugly for me, going with this, is the spiritual ego that you encounter from others in the community, and others that do this, because that's what I've encountered so many times. And we're human beings, we all have egos, and it will be triggered, and it will, many of us at times and quite often respond to things in ego. It's a normal thing. But the spiritual ego, it's kind of uh, a hybrid of the normal ego.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's where there's that sort of negative connotation where and it becomes more of a competition, and it becomes a, I'm more woke than you are, and and certain things like that. Like, I felt like the backlash I've gotten from other people, as I said, in the community, for charging is pretty astounding. I've gotten it more from other readers and other people in the community than actual clients, believe it or not. Okay, I
Mm-hmm.
remember one time I had a girl who is, I believe she's Wiccan, and then she was like, this was right around the time I was just starting up, actually, and I was, doing pretty well with it. And I just got a message from her, well, I personally don't read, and I don't feel that I have to, and this, that, and the third. And I'm like, well, that's great, you know,
Yeah.
but it's almost where there's that spiritual ego where they feel they deserve, I don't know, like the Nobel Peace Prize because they don't charge. And we talked about this, G. We
We
talked about
touched we touched on that in the last episode, and is there something to say? Because I feel like we went through it, and it's
Did we talk
exhausting at
about
this
that
point.
last
Because
episode? Did
we
we
did
talk
touch
about
it.
that?
Yeah, yeah, we touched it. We touched. Oh my god, we touched it. We touched on
Did
it
we?
in the last episode. Yeah,
Did
but
we? I
it's
thought we
such
spoke
a
about that. I thought we spoke about
yeah.
that privately. I
It's an
wasn't sure.
exhausting topic, because at the end of the day, when it comes to moral high ground, you can't do much. If somebody thinks that they are right, there's very little that you can do to convince them that, hey, there can be other perspectives.
Yeah. And
So,
it's just that issue of projection, when they feel like they're
mhm,
projecting what's right versus, you're right, you're wrong, and they're trying to project
yeah,
their belief system of what they feel is right versus yours. That's when it pisses me off, and I have to say, more power to you, and to each his own. If you choose not to charge, then that's a beautiful thing. Then you don't need to charge. But I
exactly.
don't feel that it is right that you kind of attack or pass judgment on those that do. It
Yeah,
doesn't make them any less morally just than you are. It's a matter of choice.
yeah,
Some people choose to charge, some people don't. It's as simple as
exactly,
that.
exactly.
And I think that's partly the thing here, is because people convince themselves that their truth is, universal truth, and no, homie, it's not.
no.
It's your own personal truth and ideas and belief systems, not
Exactly.
necessarily mine. And because mine differ from yours doesn't make me any any less woke than you are. And that I think that's some of the ugliness and the bad of this that I've encountered. Also the
Yeah.
competitive kind of behavior that kind of crops up. Like
Oh yeah.
I've
You
seen that
gotta
too.
you gotta watch out for the snakes in the grass at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Like literally, not to bash anybody, but
no,
I
it's
feel
true.
like
It's true.
through the experience, you have to watch out for the people who do want to use you. And we're not talking about clients here. We're
No,
talking about people in the community, people
yeah,
who work with you side by side.
that's right. I've spoken to you about this, G. I've had so many
Mm,
experiences with other
me too.
uh, people in the community that were peers, confidants that, and yeah, I was faced with a lot of disappointments in that area where the spiritual ego cropped his ugly head, and it took it to the next level with
Hmm.
competition. And there's a lot of issues of a lot of readers complaining about their content being stolen. That
Hmm.
happens very often, and more often than it should. It's
Oh
happened
yeah.
to me. It's happened to me where my content was stolen, and it was by someone that I trusted and that I pretty much trained, and I helped her with her startup in the beginning. She had came to me and asked me, Chaz, can you help mentor me and help me start up my business, whatever. And I helped her like every step of the way. And yeah, she
Backfired.
she got pretty good buzz on YouTube. And then I was very happy for her. She was doing her thing and she was thriving, and I was like, this is what I wanted for her. But then it again, spiritual ego reared his ugly head,
Hmm.
and then it became a competition. Then it became, she's a better reader than me because she has more subscribers, and you know what I mean. And then
Yeah.
we had a spiritual group together, and I would do lives and tutorials, and I had no idea that she was stealing my content and putting it on her YouTube, until I had mutual friends tell me, and it was kind of a blow. It was a blow
Yeah.
because
Of
I
course.
felt I trusted her and I helped her start up, and she didn't, and I kind of felt like, you have your own niche. You don't need to copy me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't.
You got your
And
own thing, so.
I do feel when you find readers out there that steal content, it's because they're really not confident in their own craft,
Hmm.
honestly speaking. And if that's really what it is, then maybe you need to take a little more time out
Oh yeah.
to do some soul searching before you go forth on this business. Because if but
That
again,
should
it's
be sort of the point of you need to stop, go back to the drawing board,
mhm,
and then come back.
yeah. But I think a lot of it has to do with the greed aspect too.
Oh yeah.
I think
Oh yeah.
when a lot of you get some buzz and you get some clients and money's rolling in, you know you become more about the money than the craft of it. And I've seen
Yeah.
that too, and I think that's another ugly aspect of this as well. I've
Oh yeah.
seen readers where they charge hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a reading, and I mean, to each his own. If that's how much you feel confident enough to charge, by all means.
Of course.
But
If you offer value for the money that you're requesting, there is absolutely no question to the validity or to the aspect of that money. But if you're
right,
charging for the sole purpose of gaining money, but you're doing shitty readings or you're fucking people over, pardon my French,
yeah,
then there should be a question of you reading and persisting you doing readings in the future. That's
yeah.
where the problem is.
Because
Because
I've seen
I've
that. I've seen
I've seen
that.
it
Oh my God.
countless. Countless time people come in like, I've been fucked over by this person. They took hundreds of dollars and did nothing.
Yeah. Or they book the reading, right? You know, another thing too with that is they overbook.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Guys, and that's another thing. You have to stay on top of your scheduling and not overbook. But I've seen a lot of readers do this. They overbook, and they purposely do that to hoard all this money,
Mm-hmm.
and then they
It's not
can't
going
keep
to help
track.
you.
Yeah,
It's not going to help you. That's what I wanted to
and
say as well. Like, take breaks. If you do
yeah,
multiple readings a day, don't book them back to back to back. I used to do that because I was wanting to read everybody and make everybody come into my schedule as soon as possible so they wouldn't have to wait and stuff like that. It was never about the money, but I wanted to give them a spot as soon as possible. So I would be like, 3 p.m., I have a 15-minute reading. 3:15, I have a half an hour reading. 3:45, I have another 15-minute reading. Then I have to stop that and I have to go write a 900 word PDF. And that sort of thing, it kills you. Take some time. If it's 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, for me is ideal to take between each reading. To
mm-hmm.
go grab some water, go pee if I need to, because you need to feed your body as well.
Stop and break.
Some food in, have some snacks ready, and then go back to reading.
Absolutely, yeah. That's huge. I just spoke about that festival and how
Yeah,
I didn't
exactly.
get my,
I just wanted
how I
to
didn't get
make
that.
sure people heard that for the second time because I feel like that's a very important thing. Talking about
Absolutely.
the aspects of just reading
Know
itself.
your
But when it
limits.
comes to exactly.
Know your limits. Straight
It
up.
sort of comes into boundaries as well. It sort of goes into that territory.
Absolutely.
You have to set the
Yeah.
boundary. Okay, I can read you in 15 minutes. I will take this time for me so I can give you the best possible reading after those 15 minutes pass. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of where we stand with that. So with that, I was wanting to bring up kind of I wanted to bring up one last topic, maybe on a more cheerful note before we end today's podcast.
Yes.
And we sort of touched on this, but maybe in a different aspect today. The idea of community. I feel like is a really important thing for anybody starting their business in tarot. I want to say in the not just the aspect of having a client base, but sort of having a community for yourself where you can immerse yourself with other people interested in the same topic, where you can bounce off ideas. And this is where it gets tricky because we did talk about the aspect of people stealing ideas. So you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I shouldn't be talking to anybody, but as you can tell, me and Chess are getting fine along just fine. So I feel like it's important to have at least one person or a group of people that you can come to and just talk about things. If you had a shitty reading, talk about it. And I feel
Mhm.
like that's very important. A lot of the time, clients will be questioning, like, is the information that I'm sharing with you secure? Yes, I'm not going to talk about what you told me to anybody else unless it's a person that I can trust and I know they are going to give me some positive feedback on the experience I had with that reading. I feel like that's a very interesting and important thing to have as well. Because I know that for myself, I don't have that many people in my kind of a circle of friends physically that live around me that have that opportunity to kind of talk about this sort of stuff because they're not simply interested in that. So having chats, having a couple more friends online and a couple more friends in person that I can come to and just talk about, hey, this is what happened, this is what came through, or just about the aspect of the business, bounce off some ideas or the aspect of the type of reading you may want to try. Maybe you want to test the reading out. It's a new spread, it's a new deck. You want to see how it works and stuff like that, and you don't want to do that on a client. You want to see how it works. So I feel like that aspect of community, having a couple of people around you that you can bounce off ideas, sorry, and just get a kind of an input on your own personal kind of a tarot business is very important. So what do you think about that?
I I'm really happy that you brought this up because it's essential, I feel, to what we do. having a support system is so important. And we covered all the bases, and we talked about the bad, and unfortunately at the moments where we do attract the not so great people. But at the end of the day, if you have a support system, even if it's just one or two people that are on your side and that you can vent to and that you can exchange ideas with and feel safe to share, then that makes this all the more worthwhile. I personally feel like if it hadn't been for my support system, I probably would have stopped doing this a long time ago.
Oh yeah.
But because I had people that believe in me and believe in what I do, it gave me the strength and the motivation to continue forward.
Oh yeah.
With,
It
and
means
of course you're
along the
part
way.
of that support system, G, like
as much as you're a part of mine as well.
So had it not been for you guys supporting me and believing in what I do, I don't feel I would still be here in this business. So again, I wholeheartedly agree that is of the utmost importance above all with this. Finding a sense of community, finding a support system that you can trust and feel safe with. So yes. And shout out to my support system, to my tribe. Love you guys.
I'm giving a big thanks to mine as well. It comes in handy along the way, and I feel like in the aspect of the business itself, it can be useful if you have a reader or somebody that does a certain type of spiritual business that you don't do, and you have a client that requests that specific thing. You have that person that you know will be able to help them if you can't. Because I know that I have had people come in and I'm like, I don't feel very comfortable reading for you because that's not my strong suit. I know somebody that can do that for you.
Yes.
So please go along and ask them. I know that they will be able to help you. I've done that with you. I know I've sent a couple of people your way. I was like, I know that there is a much more, I want to say, not just accuracy, but the specific thing that they requested. I know that it's going to suit you, Chaz, for example, more than it's going to suit me.
Right.
And
I've sent them your way too. Like we've done that with each other.
Yeah. And I've had other people. I've had people who came in, and for some reason, I do attract a lot of people who have descendancy with the Native American kind of a line of spirituality, or they have some sort of association with it. And I have a friend who's also on YouTube that I like to send them to because he is more in that lane and he's going to better be able to help them than I am, who don't have that much experience in that lane. So I feel like the aspect of community is very useful when you look at it that way from a business standpoint, but just from the personal, to have that sort of safe blanket, where you can come to and just relax and have a drink and just talk about everything is very crucial at the end of the day.
Definitely. It's how you keep your sanity.
Oh yes. Sometimes you'll be getting Lindas, sometimes you'll be getting Karens of the world. And,
I'll tell you, it's how I keep from being in a straitjacket. Seriously, like for real.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that with that, we will conclude this episode. It was lovely to have all of you present. To anybody listening, you can feel free to reach out to us through our email, our IG profile, both our Tarot Rebel podcast. All of the links will be below. You can reach to both of us personally in our social media as well. The links will be below. So with that, I hope everybody has an amazing weekend ahead. And I'm looking forward to speaking to you all again next week.
Yep. Until next week.
Much love to you.
It was a pleasure as always, guys.